welcome everyone to the long-delayed fourth episode of Nodecast. This podcast episode is all about the Minetest Gamejam from back in December of 2021 that had real monetary prizes and even had the creator, C55 of Minetest, as a judge. We will be hearing from several participants in shorter length interviews than the normal format, so enjoy. Welcome, Mr. E. I see that you were a core member of the creation of this game jam. I want to hear about, how did you start the idea for a game jam? Why a game jam for Minetest?
Well, a game jam seemed like a good way to get more content for Minetest and have fun, and Minetest builds itself as an engine, and a game jam is a good way to use that capability. So a great community event. It just seemed like a good idea, and I bugged Green Zenith about it and asked if people like Minetest videos and LC Joe were interested in it, and they were, and we got a group together after the Let 'em Dare game jam was finished, which a lot of community members were participating in, and just discussed how the game jam would go, and it went from there.
Cool. So it sounds like you were already doing kind of game jammy things, and you were already kind of working with Minetest. So I kind of want to hear, how long have you been with Minetest? Kind of how did you become a player? How did you become a modder? And then kind of what led to, I guess, where we are today for you?
So I started playing Minetest probably 2018, 2019, well, probably about 2018, when my dad introduced me to Minecraft Pi Edition, and very quickly we discovered Minetest after that, and it became our favorite game. I started out playing Blocky Survival, and then quickly transitioned to Survival X, which it's sad that it's down now. It was a really great survival game with nice community and a well-built server. Then I was going through a period of my life where I was alone and a lot more, and had a lot more time for playing Minetest, and I went and joined the Meescraft community, which had just started. It is a fairly well-polished Minetest game with mods that has a nice community with it, and that community was what got me interested in modding. It had a developer who was open to installing mods that I would make, and who encouraged me to get into modding, and his handle is Komodo, or anyhow. My first mod was a spleef minigame, and I've been interested in minigames ever since, really. It was basically nodes that if you punched it with your bare hand, it would flash and then disappear, and then it would come back again later. And sometimes if you punched it, it would instead put fire on top. And the idea is that you could make spleef arenas, and then just you could craft these blocks and then make a spleef arena and reuse it.
Now, tell me, I'm the dummy. What's spleef?
Oh, spleef is it originated in Minecraft. It's a mini game where you have a board where you punch, somehow you dig or punch or get rid of blocks from under other players and try to make them fall.
Okay, I got you.
Okay, so after modding and helping out with Meescraft a bit, I got interested in making minigames for Zugi's minigames library called ArenaLib. So I made Sumo as my first minigame, which was a really simple minigame. You have a stick. It looks like a default stick, but if you punch other players with it, it sends them flying. If you right-click with it on the ground, it makes you jump. And the goal is to knock all the other players out of the arena and into the water, or into air that kills them, and the water kills them. So you knock them all off the arena, and you win. And Zugi encouraged me to refine it and make it a really good experience, so I added 3 lives that you would have, and a jail that you would be sent to when you died, and a HUD to let you know the status of the cooldown of your stick, and things like that.
Now, Out of curiosity, I haven't played on a minigame server yet. So does all this kind of happen after you enter like a minigame area, or you like say I want to play this minigame?
Yeah, so the way the minigame library works is that it has a sign that you punch, and the act of punching it signs you up for the minigame. You can punch it again to sign off of the minigame, and once it gets enough players, it starts a countdown timer to start the minigame and teleports. Once the timer reaches 0, it teleports all the players that have signed up into the arena and gives them whatever tools they need to start the playing.
Okay, cool. All right. You definitely have a ton of game, Minetest game making experience. It's actually kind of impressive. So I see how you would easily transition into wanting to do a game jam. Now, I believe you were on a team this time. You and Three Hymns made Block Bomber. Can you talk to me how did you guys become a team? How did that happen?
So after we announced the start of the game jam, I wasn't sure if I was going to be making a game jam entry or not, but Three Hymns announced on the Discord chat that he would be interested in making a game jam entry with someone and that he wasn't interested in the prize money. Since I was a game jam judge, whatever entry I made couldn't win any prize money, so that seemed like a good fit, and I proposed that we work together, and he was open to that. So, yeah.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, teams definitely had a special place in my heart this time around. I wish I could work on more teams in general. So you two worked on that game. Now I'm pretty impressed. Block Bomber, even for the Game Jam release, was pretty darn fleshed out and very polished.
Well, we were lucky because it got points docked off for originality because it was a clone of Bomberman,
Sure,
but
right.
because it was a clone, it gave us an advantage that we knew exactly what to implement. I had a pretty good idea of how to do it. I had already made an attempt previously and actually lost the files on that.
Oh no, that's horrible.
Well, I mean, I of course could have just started again from scratch anyways, but I would have been less likely to do that had I already been developing it and had a reasonable code base to start from. I would not have wanted to start again from scratch and would have picked some other game. But having lost all the code, well, I mean, I haven't exactly lost it. It's on my dead computer, but I haven't gotten around to recovering it yet. And there's not much point really. Because I had basically lost it, I did feel like starting again and making another attempt, having learned a good bit about making a game like that from experience with making mini games.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, who did what with the game? So did Three Hymns like do coding? Did you do coding? What happened there?
Well, I mostly did the coding,
Okay.
but and Three Hymns did a lot of the textures, and he did a significant amount of refining of the experience with the code and with the textures. Yeah, we both did a lot of refining, but
So you both did a good job of refining. You've done so much so that you guys have actually had multiple servers of Block Bomber come up since you've gone live. I know there's the Mystery Block Bomber server. There's, I think, two others. Can you tell me what those are?
yeah, there's the official Block Bomber server, and I'm not sure why they call it official, but I you can assume that. I mean, I looked at their website, and it seems that there might be a language barrier where they think official means the official game. So I have to assume goodwill here. And then there's Block Bomber Chile, which is a Block Bomber server that you can play on if you would benefit from a server based in Chile.
Like in South America? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, South America, because some players on the Block Bomber server found that the ping was too high to play effectively. And War has pointed out that I really should figure out the minimum latency you can have to be able to play. And I have asked some people about, well, I've asked one person about that who was having trouble, and he said that he had 300 milliseconds ping, and that was playable, but not the best experience.
Yeah, and even in games that I've played in the past, once you start getting into the like 150, 200, it does start to degrade your experience. That's true.
Yeah. So this is a game that you would benefit from having low latency, but you can make do with lag. It's not great, but you can do it. And also you can play on mobile. One of the second highest scorer on the leaderboard is on mobile.
That's impressive.
That's quite an accomplishment. He had to turn off auto jump in the advanced settings because jump key places a bomb in.
Auto bomb.
Yes. So,
That's really cool. I envy anyone that can make a game that works for mobile well. I mean, I tried with Little Lady and Labyrinth.
I wouldn't say it works with mobile well.
Yeah, yeah.
It does work.
Minetest is not made for mobile yet. But I would argue that no block game is really that great on mobile. You're kind of, I think the words that were said is like your hands are literally like twisting around your phone the entire time. Like, how are you supposed to see and play?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you guys did awesome. I think you placed fourth officially, though. Honestly, if you weren't a judge, you wouldn't. You had a slight disadvantage being a judge because your rating didn't count. So I think mechanically you would have taken third, the two of you, if you had not been a judge. So I thank you as the third place winner very much. The funds went to good use there for paying for all the Nodecast episodes, so that's pretty fun. So you told me basically kind of how it went for making your game. So what made you decide to give this Game Jam funding? Because I know that you were one of the seed fund rounds for this whole thing, and it ended up having like $700 for a Game Jam, which is unheard of.
Well, I have made suggestions for things relating to Minetest in the past, and like making a game or something like that. People aren't really necessarily interested, but it so happened that I had just received birthday money that I figured I could put to good use with starting a prize pool for the Game Jam. And I think that the fact that I was willing to put money into it helped other people be willing to take me seriously. And yeah, after I talked to people about it, Mindtest Videos decided he would match my contribution. And from there, once it was made official and finalized, I mean, the plan for the Game Jam was finalized, a bunch of other people contributed. And that was really nice.
Yeah, that's really cool. So what you're saying is that for your birthday, you got the gift of like 24 brand new games for Mindtest.
And that's really nice. Yeah.
So did you play them all?
Yes.
I mean, I guess you did because you're a judge, but
Yeah.
I guess do you continue to play them all?
Okay. Not really. I have specific games that I am interested in, and I continue to be interested in those games particularly.
I hate to pry, but I'm curious, which ones were your favorites?
There were some really good favorites. Of course, I was very impressed with Alter, and the Subway Miner was a really good, fun little thing to do. And to be honest, I liked the first part of Little Lady, but not.
Yeah, hate on my game. Go ahead, go ahead. I agree.
I liked the first part of Little Lady, but second part where it got hard, I don't know. I kind of lost interest at that point. But
I don't blame you. No worries. I definitely had to rush my game. If I were to interview myself, I'd say, that game sucked. I can't believe it scored any points.
Well, we were starting from a low bar with games for Mindtest in general.
It's true. And it'll be massively improved in the future. It's just, as it stands right now, it's like trying to play QWOP. It's just an effort and frustration.
Then
what else do you like?
Jordash, anyhow,
Well, I'll have to ask him sometime.
Yeah. His Invector has a whole lot of wow factor. And the city builder, build a city. That's easy to remember. While it wasn't an actual game, it was a really good proof of concept, and with further development, it can be turned into a very fun game. And I love how if you are standing on a coastline, it looks like you have basically infinite view distance. You can see other countries way off in the distance, and I mean, it's a really good use of the available space in Mindtest by making everything small.
Okay, so you like Build a City. Do you want to talk about any others before we do like last closing thoughts?
Color Hop was pretty good. I just kind of liked it, yeah. Leave it at that.
All right. Okay. Mr. E, before we sign off, do you have anything else that you want to share with everybody?
Just be nice to each other. The Minetest community is fractured enough as it is without drama, and if everybody's nice to each other, then we can avoid a lot of that and be understanding and forgiving of each other and make great Minetest content. Yeah, that's all.
Awesome. Great advice. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope to interview you again sometime, hopefully when you've gotten time to make a whole bunch more games for us.
Oh boy.
Keep the good stuff coming. All right. Thanks, man. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Welcome, Star Ninjas. Introduce yourself and what was your game for the Game Jam?
Hello everyone, and my game for the Game Jam was Jail Escape. And I'm a modder in Minetest, and I've been at this since I was 9 years old or 10.
Nice. Describe your game. What is Jail Escape?
Jail Escape is a game where you're trying to escape from a jail. You're in a randomly generated maze. It's actually a fork of Labyrinth, which the owner of this channel, the guy doing the podcast, made. And you are in a randomly generated maze, and you're trying to get different types of loot that could help you in not getting killed by the bad guys, because there are guards trying to capture you. So you need to escape this maze and try not to get captured.
Cool. And thank you for making Labyrinth better. Jail Escape is definitely a step up from what Labyrinth is. And that shows in the reviews. So what was your game plan going into the Game Jam for making this game? So, did you know exactly what you were going to do, or were you looking for inspiration?
A lot of the stuff before I'd planned on paper and pen. Originally, I really wanted to add a timer, but in the end, I didn't have time to add that, and I still would like to add that. Some sort of high score system or time, so players can beat their previous records. But yeah, a lot of the game I came up with, and actually one day I was sitting around the table with some of my brothers, and I was trying to come up with ideas for what game I'd do. And one of my brothers was talking about a game he'd like to do. He's my younger brother, and he thought about maybe doing his own game. He's saying, a game where you're in a big box and you're trying to break out. And I said, well, I wonder. I'm like, that's a good idea. Maybe I'll do some sort of jailbreak game. And so that's kind of where I got the idea, and it just kind of went on from there.
Very cool. I don't know many people that use pen and paper to plan. So did you plan your features on pen and paper, or were you drawing out code on pen and paper?
No, I wasn't drawing out code. That's too much work to me. And I just kind of get into it and start writing the code. But I started drawing some of the bad guys, drawing concept art, writing what they'd be good at, and also doing some of the items too, and writing down what they'd be found in, what type of loot there would be, and just some ideas of maybe how big the maze would be and stuff. And that's what I was writing down. And that's kind of then I just put that into code and textures.
So what worked well during that process and what didn't work well?
Well, like how I'd mentioned before, I didn't get to add the timer, and I think that's the big thing I want to add, and it didn't work out. But most of the things that I wrote, I actually added. Most of the things, pretty much everything that's in the game, was originally written down on paper. So pretty much everything worked out. There's a few items that didn't show up, so pretty much everything worked out.
Awesome. So before the Game Jam happened and after the Game Jam happened, what did you think about it going into it? So what did you think of the Game Jam before and after?
Well, I thought this was a really cool idea, because I think people, like me, I'll make stuff if there's a certain amount of time. That helps, because sometimes I just wander off and stop working on something. But if I have a goal and I have a certain amount of time, I think I really like that. And I really loved the Game Jam, especially afterwards, just once it's finished. I was like, this was really awesome, and I hope we can do it a few more times this year, at least one more time. And I was like, okay, what game am I going to do next Game Jam? I'm already thinking ahead.
Nice.
So I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. All right. I think that covers it for the Game Jam specifically. Is there anything else that you would like to share on this podcast before we sign off?
Well, I think just becoming a modder it's quite the journey. And when I started, like I said, I was 9 or 10. And so that's pretty young. And I actually started programming when I was about 6 or 7 on a different platform. And I think you can learn a lot by looking at other people's code and stuff. That's how I learned. I self-taught myself. I'm a homeschooler in real life, so I'm kind of used to self-teaching. I have a big Christian family, so it's really awesome to have all their support and all these things. them playing my games and testing it and stuff. So I really like that. I think it's good to have support, and all the people in the community who've given me comments and stuff, that's really what pushed me to make my games and stuff better. And I think you can, like I said, just learn a lot from looking at other people's codes and just seeing what they said, and that's how you can learn a lot, I think.
That's great. I'm glad that you got so much support. Do all of those family members play Minetest?
Yeah, all of them except for my mom and my little brother who can't play.
All right, I think that's it. Thank you so much, Star Ninjas, for interviewing today. Have a good one.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, next up today is Yaman Q. Welcome, Yaman Q, to Nodecast podcast.
Hello, everyone.
For those of you that don't know, Yaman Q was the creator of Alter, that hidden gem of a game on the Game Jam this year. I looked at that screenshot and I said, it's just going to be another Node game, woo. And lo and behold, it was awesome. So congrats, Yaman Q. I love that game, actually. It was my first one I played. I think you got lucky, though. A is pretty early in the alphabet.
I did consider that. I'm not sure how ContentDB, ranks everything, and I guess I got lucky with the name, but thank you so much.
So actually tell us, what came first, the idea, the name? How did you come about the idea for Alter?
Strangely enough, the first thing I came up about Alter is probably the most disliked feature of the game, being the kind of message system that I implemented in there. I actually came up with that first, and I fully implemented it, and then I thought, okay, what kind of game can I make that will use this?
Oh, nice. Okay, so Form Specs was like your first, 5 days of dev time, or 5 minutes. What did you do? Like, I love the audio sound, the little beep-doop sound that happened every time.
Mm-hmm.
That was super immersive. Did you do that pretty early on, or was that later?
So initially, I didn't have any sounds until I had some friends try out the game, and they told me, are there no sounds in this Minetest game? And that's when I realized that I should probably find something. So I ended up getting those from online sources because I'm, as you can tell, probably not the best creator for these kinds of sound files and things like that. So there's actually, little to my knowledge, is that there's a huge community of free sounds with, permissive licenses and things like that. So it was a great resource for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of those. I might have to do like an episode on just all of the places you can get free stuff that's like legal in the world. But yeah, that's awesome that you found some. So sounds like the game idea came after the message system. The mechanics are pretty cool. I love the the teleportation of the block. How did you come up with that idea?
I actually came up with it when I was talking with friends about brainstorming about various ideas, and we talked about alternate dimensions, things like that, and that's kind of the basis for how I came up with it, and I kind of tweaked it so that it's more understandable and easier to process, to use in an actual game.
This was actually a pretty well thought out game, front to back. It had a good progression. It had the right amount of difficulty for a Game Jam game. I was thoroughly impressed with that. How did you have experience making games before this? Did you do like Ludum Dares beforehand? How long have you been around Minetest?
So I joined the Minetest community sometime in 2013, I want to say.
Wow, so really early on. That's awesome.
Yeah, my first experience with Minetest, was not really developing for it. I joined the Red Crab server, and actually that was my only experience with Minetest for at least until it closed down, maybe a year or so before that. I did start making some mods, but they weren't anything crazy. They were just, the basics. And then I did do some development for the engine, and I think I have contributed a tiny bit to Node Core, but this is my first game I've ever made. I have worked on other software development projects, so that definitely helped a lot.
Okay, cool. So out of curiosity, do you do this like part-time? Like, do you do software outside of Minetest then?
I'm not in the software development industry or anything like that, but it is definitely a huge hobby for me, and I like to work on that kind of stuff.
How surprised were you when you started getting, great reviews from the Game Jam? Like, how did you think you were going to stack up beforehand?
Well, okay, so when I submitted my game on the last few hours, and I don't know if this was intentional, but you could see the number of games that was submitted even if you couldn't see the actual games themselves.
Oh, absolutely, that was intentional.
And I just kept seeing that number, skyrocket, and I'm thinking, wow. At first, when it was around 8 or so submitted games, I was thinking, okay, maybe I'll get in the top 50%. So it was actually a huge surprise when I saw that, among 25 games, mine was rated the highest. And honestly, I feel like some other games have, a lot more effort put into them and more, I guess, in my opinion, they're much more enjoyable, but also I guess you can't really enjoy your own game, or so I found.
I have to admit, I created Little Lady, and it's still just as frustrating for me as it is for everybody else. So don't worry, it's not just a creator thing. It's like, oh, I love this game, and then I ran out of time, so I made a very hard co-op style game by the end of it. But that was because I was rushed. I didn't want to do a co-op game. But hey, everyone seemed to like it, so that worked out. So you were surprised, happy. I am curious, how energized are you afterwards? So, have you been working on Alter since the Game Jam results came out?
So I do have a lot of ideas, and I want to say that the community overall is extremely supportive, and they all have really great ideas that they've brought up. The problem is that there's some, I have a lot of things going on in my life right now, and I'm running out of time in terms of working on these hobby projects. So I'm thinking that in a few months things should calm down a little, and I hope to be able to return to this project because, in addition to the ideas that everyone else has, I also have a lot of things that I want to improve in the game.
I know some people have shown some interest in working on some of these games outside of the game creators. Something someone brought up to me for Little Ladies, make a roadmap and then just let people submit PRs. You'd be surprised. Some people might actually help you out a lot.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think I'll probably put that into my repository as well. It's just that it might be a little bit harder to find on GitLab instead of GitHub.
Nah, it's easy. Just go to ContentDB, hit source, everybody. You'll find it. That's easy. We got good links everywhere. I think that's actually most of my questions. Yaman-Q, what else do you want to share with the community before we sign off with you today?
I just wanted to say that over the time that I've been watching Minetest, even if I haven't, made any huge contributions to games or engines or anything like that, I just find that the game has really improved a huge amount. I remember even in, around 2014 or whatever, there was a bug where, the world would systematically get corrupted, and that was a huge problem on the Red Crab server. But, now there aren't any huge, crashing bugs or anything like that in Minetest, and I feel like it's getting to a place where it's, I don't want to say complete software, but I do want to say that it's a much more mature project than when I started, and I hope to see it continue to develop like that.
I've been thoroughly impressed with the stability, but I've also been thoroughly impressed with the actual improvement in total feature set. I know everyone complains about, nothing's changed in 10 years, but that's only because it's not changed in the way that you want. There's been lots of changes. If you want to make the changes you want, I guess you got to go make the source yourself, right? It's open source. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I think I looked at Minetest back in, around 2013. It was right before they did all the Lua integrations, and it was all hard-coded C stuff. I was thoroughly disappointed with what open source had created for Minecraft. I was like, come on, not yet. Checked back in I think late 2016, I was blown away. I was like, wow, 5 years does a lot for this. I'm used to open source just sitting stale for 20 years and still the same game 20 years later plus a map.
Yeah, that's true. I think maybe something that a lot of people are looking for is a reskin of the game, and I'm referring to maybe the form specs and the main menu. I think those are big pain points for people.
Yeah, there's been some recent talk in some developer channels about maybe improving the main menu in some ways. There's a whole project I think 3 people are leading up right now that's it's a completely different launcher for Minetest. Right at the end of the day, you just run Minetest.exe at the bottom or Minetest binaries on Linux. They're trying to make this really nice like JavaScript web-based main menu, so that'll be fun if they ever get it done.
Yeah, I also saw some demos. I think it was on an issue that Ruben Wardy started, and I'm honestly quite impressed by the quality of those demos, and I hope that at least one of them can get into a final product.
And they will. Don't you worry. We'll get it better. It just takes time. Anyways, thank you so much for joining us today. You were awesome, Yaman-Q. I'm glad that you had the time to join us on the podcast. Have a good one.
Great. Bye.
Next, we are interviewing with AFCM, the second place winner of the Minetest Gamejam of 2021, with his entry, Subway Miner. So tell us, did you think that Subway Miner would be a top-placing game when you were making it?
When I started to work on it, I was expecting to be in the top 10 just because I was on vacation and had a lot of time available. Some other games were much better looking than mine, like Tower Defense. That was the first game I ever made and I was stressed. Honestly, I couldn't believe it when I saw my game reviews pushing it to a first place in the community.
Wait, that's the first game you've ever made? How'd you do that well? Did you work on other games with Minetest or contribute to other games in general before the Game Jam?
I am in the Minecraft 2 development team, but Subway Miner was the first game I made entirely myself. My modding experience helped me a lot, but I never touched some specific parts of game development before, like map generation. I have to say thanks to the Discord community for answering my questions regarding this point.
Yeah, I also have to give a shout out to the Discord community for helping me so much with Little Lady. It's definitely one of the most active Minetest places to get help from. How did you decide to do Subway Miner as a game for Minetest? Like, Minetest is not exactly known for arcade games or anything like that.
To be honest, I am much better with modding than with game design. Many existing well-known games came to my mind and I chose Subway Surfers because I thought it wouldn't be too hard to do while still being challenging and fun. I turned Subway Surfers into Subway Miner to be able to reuse Minetest game assets and add some originality to my game.
Gotcha. Well, congrats on such a well-received game for someone who isn't very good at game design. Now, while we have you here, tell the community here a bit more about you. Do you do software programming for a living? Are you in school still? When did you start with Minetest and with modding in general?
I am almost 16. I am French and currently at high school. I started programming in 2020 by doing my first ever Minetest mod. It was obviously very, very bad and not even working properly. With time, I made more small mods, mostly for my personal modern Minetest game server. I published some of them later on the ContentDB. I discovered Minecraft 2 just before Wazi left and made my first pull request. After maybe 2 months, I got the developer status from the new maintainers. Since then, I am staying active both in the development and the modding community. I also know Python and JavaScript. I made Minetest-related scripts, Discord bots, and websites.
Wow, you are prolific. Okay, so also quite impressive for starting programming only 2 years ago. Sounds like you've only touched dynamic languages so far. Perhaps you should learn, C or C++ and start contributing to the engine. Wink, wink. Just kidding. I'd rather you keep making great content. Honestly, other C++ coders will come along as we gain more popularity in general. Please enjoy your time in high school. That and college are really when you have the most time to contribute to projects like Minetest. As I currently work in the software industry right now, I can honestly say I have very little time outside of work to do software. Alright, that closes out our interview. Anything else you'd like to share with the listeners?
To be honest, I would really like to learn C++, but it's much, much harder than learning languages like Python, Lua, and JavaScript. Anyways, I want to say I will update Subway Miner along with Minetest releases, and I will also add new features to the game if I get the time between all my other projects.
Awesome. Looking forward to them. Thanks for joining us. Okay. That's everyone I interviewed for the Game Jam post-mortem interviews. Sorry to all of you who have been asking for this episode for so long. My life has only been getting busier lately. Going forward, expect a new episode every 3 to 6 months, so not near as much content as I originally planned for the podcast. Thanks for listening. See you next time. Bye.